All right, good morning, everybody. Rob Brown here with you on this Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. Look at my producer. Brendan's out with the funk today. Richard Petty in the studio. Richard, how
y'all doing today? I'm Richard Petty. A lot of people don't know I'm Brendan's cousin.
Yeah, well, you're damn right.
Buddy's second wife, third marriage of the fourth dog that went down the street.
Up around Charlotte, yeah.
Hey, right around Charlotte.
Got a great show today, man. Brian Matthews, AuburnSports.com, checks in with us in the first segment, followed up by Jake Wimberly, ESPN 105.9 The Drive in Jackson, Mississippi, covering Ole Miss, Mississippi State, all things in the Magnolia State. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. Vince Ferrara up on the hill in Knoxville talking about the Fighting Iamaliavas in Tennessee. So smash the subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner. Get pen and paper handy. Get some note-taking ready.
Pen and paper.
Yeah,
I saw
pen
that
and
the
paper
Buddy Martin show last night. They had that on there, by the way.
That's right. I saw that. Like I said, I'm going to get my pen and paper. Hey, can I borrow a sheet of notebook paper? I never got paid back on that. Hey, get ready because here comes Brian Matthews. First time he's been on the show. He's one of our Auburn guys now. So here we go. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown here with you, man. Drinking out of my Bim Bam cup from down in Oxford,
Sorry
Mississippi.
about that, Brian. I had a graphic over your face there. I don't know where these
sorry about that. Brian,
might want to keep it there, to be honest.
I got Richard Petty in the studio, but try not to be distracted. My normal producer, Brendan Martin's out with the funk today. He's got the plague, but he'll be back. Brian, welcome to the show, man. I've heard you so many years on Bill Cameron's show in Auburn, and he kept saying, man, Brian is awesome. And I know you and Jason are friends. Jason Caldwell's on here a lot from Auburn Undercover, but a lot of questions already coming in because I know you're going to be on the show. Is Cam Newton coming back for another year of eligibility since he went to the Supreme Court and said, I was there when the virus struck? No, kidding. Let's talk about Auburn right now. Peyton Thorne, yesterday, I couldn't believe it. People are Venmoing him, requesting money because they lost in their parlays. It's the world we live in today, but calm us down, make sense out of it. You're from Snellville, Georgia, so I know you're smart.
Doraville.
Okay.
Doraville, yeah. Not Snellville. Come on now.
Come on, man.
We used to fight them Snellville boys back in the day. What are you talking about?
I got you.
Let's talk their ass down the street and Snellville boys are bringing it.
That's right.
I'm here. I'm not here to calm things down. I'm going to say that I'm very worried about what's happening in Auburn right now. The quarterback play was poor. This is, to me, a cycle that Peyton Thorne has showed in bigger games that when he kind of loses it, he loses it. And it's really hard for him to get it back.
Yeah.
And, Hugh Freeze was asked, 6 or 7 questions about Peyton Monday in his press conference. And, he kind of hemmed and hawed, as he does. But to me, I kind of felt like he's going to give Peyton the start, but Hank Brown more opportunities to play, which is fine. But, I feel like you're kind of putting off a decision now that needs to be made instead of 2 weeks from now when Auburn's playing Arkansas or Oklahoma, when it's much more difficult to make that decision. So we'll see. I'm not the coach here. I'm not out there at practice every day, but there are players, as he mentioned, that are really good in practice and can't always take it to the game. And I think we've seen that with Peyton here at Auburn several times.
Yeah, and obviously we talked about it on the Buddy Martin show on this channel last night with DJ Lagway and Graham Mertz. But let's get back to the Plains. You've got Hank Brown. I was talking to Bill Cameron over the weekend, our good friend that you're on the show with every week. Bill's my mentor in radio, has been my whole career. I love that guy. And one of the things he said was Hank Brown is probably the best passer, but not the most athletic guy. Dave Tompkins checks in from Mountain Brook, actually over in the low country of South Carolina. Brian, just for the record, lifelong Bama fan, West Point graduate, loves the SEC. So this is Brian Matthews from auburnsports.com, Dave.
How you doing?
Well, all I can say is that New York is fine, but it ain't Dorville.
There you go.
If you remember the song, "Touch a Country
right.
in the City."
I love
it. We got ARS too, Atlanta Rhythm Section, boys from Dorville.
Hell, I love that. I love Atlanta Rhythm Section. All right,
little champagne jam.
They're good. Let's get it. What about that quarterback room? Hank Brown went to Lipscomb up there in Nashville. He's one of Trent Dilfer's guys. What do you think about him if he gets a chance Saturday?
I think you've got to change the offense a little bit around him. As you mentioned, he's not a big mobile quarterback, right? A run guy. Not saying he can't move. That's just not his strength. But he does throw the best deep ball on the team. And if you look at Auburn and what they've done at the wide receiver position, that could be a really important element to this offense. You also look at Auburn, and they got some really good backs that I think have been underutilized in the first two games and underutilized in the last couple of years. So maybe you shift this offense more to power downhill running and, getting the ball downfield a little bit more. Maybe shape it more like Tennessee. I'm not saying you could do all the stuff they do. That's pretty impressive what they do up there. But maybe add some of those elements to it that fit him a little bit better.
Dave, I know you got a question until you've been watching what's going on with Auburn. Jump in here.
Yeah, I watched the game like everyone did, and it was very painful to watch. They got a New Mexico team that's not nearly as good. Well, I guess it was New Mexico State last time, but you got New Mexico 0-2, one of the bottom 25 teams. It seems to me you just kind of whiteboard this thing and just try a lot of things and just see what sticks. Is any thoughts on that?
Yeah, New Mexico lost 61-39 at Arizona, so they can score some points, but obviously Auburn should have some opportunities to score some points if they can figure out some things on offense. But I think you're right. They've got to figure out, and they got to try different things to figure out. But the sad thing is that they spent an entire offseason, right? The plan was after Peyton, really struggled last year. Okay, we're going to build this offense, and we're going to put better pieces in. We're going to have a better offense. We're going to have better receivers. We're going to have a better offensive line. They certainly upgraded at receivers. That's true. You can't argue that point. But the offensive line struggled again in pass pro, and then you look at the offense, and it did flick it off, especially for Peyton. So. That's a big concern for Auburn going forward because these games are going to get much, much tougher. After New Mexico, you got Arkansas, which is definitely improved at home. Then you got Oklahoma at home, and then you got 3 consecutive road games, starting with Georgia. The whole month of October, Auburn will be on the road, so they got to figure things out really quick.
One thing I look at, go, Dave. I was going to say, looking at trends, and Dave and I both study the stock market closely. Auburn's on course, if they're not careful, for an 11th straight season of 4 losses or more. We all know about Alabama from 97 to 07. 8 of those 11 years, they lost 5 games or more. That includes Saban's first year. I don't know if Hugh Freeze is not Nick Saban. He's not Kirby Smart. He hadn't proven that yet. But what are you seeing is he's 7-8 after 15 games. Every Auburn coach, starting with Pat Dye, has won at least 8 games in their second year. Can this team get it done? It's no panic here or anything like that, but you got a problem at quarterback, and if you don't do something about it, like our good friend Chuck Oliver said yesterday, Hugh Freeze, you're making $7.5 million with all your bonuses, okay? You got everything. Don't yell at that kid. He's just 18 years old when he's getting $500,000. Those days are over. Chuck said, hey, Coach, I got 3 words for you. Figure it out.
That's good 3 words. You got to look at both sides of this. It is just week 2, and teams can definitely change their direction and their look, after a couple of weeks of the season, right? They get better, they learn, they improve from their mistakes. Also, when you look at Hugh Freeze, he is doing the one thing that Auburn has needed to do for many, many years, and that's recruit at a high, high level.
Yeah.
Auburn has been basically getting their butts beat in by Georgia and Alabama pretty regularly over the last 2 decades, for the most part. Auburn hasn't won in Tuscaloosa since 2010, and Cam hasn't won in Georgia since, I think, 2006,
2005,
5,
31 to 30. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's been the talent level that's been the biggest difference. So, he is changing that. Got a top 5 class, brought in the number 8 class last year, and the 2026 class is number 1 in the country right now. So, that's important. As for this year, I just don't know. I just I wonder if he can find a workaround for some of the decisions that were made and some of the deficiencies still on this team. He inherited one of the worst rosters at Auburn since 1999.
Yeah.
But he's also brought in now 40 plus signees, around 30 or so transfers. So he's managed to flip the roster, although maybe not quite as good as you want it to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing I will say is, I think you can look at Hugh Freeze right now and you can compare him to where Billy Napier was a year ago. If I'm not mistaken, Florida had a top 5 class this time last year.
Yep.
I think they had momentum. I think they had excitement in the program. Second-year coach. The season didn't go the way they wanted it to be. That top 5 class was picked apart in a lot of ways. He enters this season on the hottest seat in the country, in my opinion, and a lot of other people. And I think they have a recruiting class right now ranked in the 40th. I haven't checked here in the last couple of weeks, so maybe that's changed. But that can happen at Auburn if they don't show progress this season and people don't believe that this is a program on the rise. So this is a very, very pivotal moment in time for this program, for Hugh Freeze, for everything involved with Auburn football.
Yeah, and I think they just need to be realistic about their expectations for this year and how can a decent year this year lead to a better year next year and to a really good year after that. Say, okay, look, we're not going to win. We're going to win the rest of our non-conference games. I mean, they're all, kind of powder puffs. So we're 3-1 non-conference, and we're going to go 4-4 in the conference, and that gets to 7-5, and we win a bowl game. And if we can be at the end of the year looking back at 8-5, I think we'll say, hey, this was a turnaround year, and they've to Brian's point, they've pretty much addressed the talent gap, and they pretty much addressed the depth gap. Hugh Freeze is a great recruiter. He's very good at the portal. They'll continue to, the talent quotient will continue to go up. It's just now figuring out how to win games and not lay any more eggs like they did against Cal and then previously against New Mexico State.
Yeah, and he's got a history of that going back to Ole Miss. But 7-5 was my pick, and people scoffed at me. I'm like, this team just needs to have a winning record, have momentum, have people believe in them going into year 3 so he can maintain this recruiting, because that is the most important thing for Auburn right now, a team that wants to compete for championships but hasn't been able to collect enough talent to do that on a consistent basis, maybe once every 5 or 6 years right now on average, I would say. You can go back to 2017, they competed. 2019 kind of competed. 2013, of course, they were there. So, yeah, they've got to find a way to not have what happened to Billy Napier happen to Hugh Freeze.
Well, I was going to say, this story sounds familiar. And then oftentimes when I see trends going in different directions, you start to wonder, when the cupboards are left dry and you come in, as Hugh Freeze, as Billy Napier, how long does it take to turn around the program? Yeah. How much money is it going to cost you? All these numbers are not out there. We were at SEC Media Days. And we're talking to a lot of people just about coaches, and Hugh Freeze was the guy that everyone loves so much, right? He's like the old school, the old guard. He'll hang out with you, sit in the living room with you, talk to you, just sort of a great guy, which makes you a great recruiter. Billy Napier's everyone says I've never met him. He's a great guy. He's a great recruiter. He's a likable person. How much do you think that personality does not play very well in the SEC? Because both of these guys, are their whole careers aren't from the SEC. So I was just curious.
Well, I think the personalities play fine, right? They just got to win. They just got to have success. Our fans.
Well, just without in the motivation in the old school, you think about SEC great coaches that won. Right. They weren't powder puffs, right. Not one of them. They're all hard asses. So is that a personality characteristic that you need to have in the SEC? And is that something that because that's Florida's knock. Everyone says, we got to have an Urban Meyer come in and strip the colors, run the stadiums. Let's go.
I understand that completely, right? I get that. I think college football is changing immensely in this period of the next 2 years, plus, the last couple of years. I got another interview coming up here, but
Yeah.
Oh,
I wouldn't rule out that there are different ways to, slice up that pie and be successful in this SEC. I don't think it's fair to say that just one personality or one coaching style works.
Brian,
But
let
thanks,
them know how
guys. I
they can
appreciate
follow
y'all
you.
having me.
I know you got another interview, but let's do this again soon. I love your candor. You're damn good, and please come back.
Hey, I appreciate it. Sorry it's so short. You can check me at auburnsports.com. Follow me on Twitter/threads at BMATAU, and appreciate everything. Thanks for having me, guys.
You bet, man. Have a great day. Hey, can anybody tell me who this guy was? I'm going to throw this figure. We used to, in the newsroom at Channel 3 in Columbus, Georgia, every Saturday, Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. Look at Dave
You
in
got me
tears.
there.
Bill Elliott, the great Bill Elliott. Awesome Bill from Dawsonville up in North Georgia. Hey, want to say hello to Pat Cornelius, who's watching right now up there in North Georgia. North Georgia right now is probably the place to be. It's cool. But, hey, Jake Wimberly going to be on with us here just a minute from ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive in Jackson, Mississippi. But real quick, I'm getting texts from people in Auburn saying Peyton Thorne can't even really leave his house now. He's ordering
the same
food.
people that won't put it in the chat room. They just text you.
Well,
I know why. I know why these little buddies of yours over for a beer, and we're going to talk about their inability to use something that my 11, 12-year-old daughter just has no problem doing all the time on your phone. You can just go ahead and send that right in the chat room, guys.
Yeah, and you know what though? Here's the thing. I still, even a professional athlete that's making $10 million a year, I'm still not going to call them and cuss them and see them in public and go, "You suck." If I talk to him, I'd say, "Man, what's the problem? I mean, why can't the offense get rolling?" Here's the deal. My dad's a smart guy. He says, the Bible's a thick book, 10 Commandments. Try to follow the 10 Commandments as best you can and treat people like you want to be treated. But still, when you start paying these guys, what you're paying them in NIL, it's a different world we live in. Some people just have class and some people don't. I'm still going to treat people like I'd want to be treated. But that's just me. It's a free country. That's why we have the First Amendment. And criticism
do unto others
bad.
as you do unto yourself.
Yes.
Or
says Dave.
Just buy everyone a drink. Everyone gets around. Okay.
Orange whip for everybody.
All right.
Text on the platform, not directly to Rob.
Yeah.
Dave, where are you right now? What are you doing? Like, are you in New York? What's your deal?
I'm in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you were in New York or something like that.
No, I was New York's fine, but it ain't Doraville. That's the song from Doraville from the Atlanta Rhythm section. That was the, my little. I always have to lead with an obscure reference.
I'll never get that one. That's
like,
can you name that tune? Dave's like, I can name it in one note.
Yes.
Note.
He can.
Alabama in 2007 and Auburn in 2024. That's apples and oranges. I get, but let's, Auburn folks, take a breath and remember that first season with Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And they were basically a 500 team. By the end of the year, they were competitive in their SEC games. I remember I was in Bryant-Denny when they gave LSU all they could handle, but lost. They had a competitive team, and they were teed up for next year. Next year, they had a great run. They got to the SEC championship. Were completely overmatched against Florida, and Brendan's team won and kept winning. But it was year 3 when they won their first national championship. I don't think Auburn's 2 years away from a national championship. But let's be realistic about this. Let's consider this year to be year 1. Win on Saturday. Go 500 in the SEC. Win your bowl game, raging success, in my opinion.
Yeah, no need to panic here. We've got 3 engines left. Hey, Jake Wimberly checks in, ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive in the bold new city, Jackson, Mississippi. Jake, no pressure on any coaches right now in Florida or Auburn, whatever, but all things are great in the Magnolia State. But let's talk first. We talked a lot of Ole Miss yesterday with Yancy Porter. Mississippi State went out on the road, got down big early at Arizona State, fought back hard. What were your takeaways from the Bullies' loss out there in Tempe?
Yeah, good morning. Morning, guys. I appreciate you having me in. Yeah, takeaways. This team's got a long way to go. Long way to go. They still need talent. It's just, that there's a roster flip and roster churn there. They need guys on the defensive front. They're going to struggle defensively this year. How much better can they get with the schedule that they have with, the likes of Florida and Georgia and Texas and Missouri and others coming up on that schedule? It's going to be a tough year for Jeff Lebby. Offensively, there's some good signs. Blake Shapen, I think, is a really serviceable quarterback for what he's trying to do. They've got some pieces offensively, but again, like we talked about prior to the season, this is going to look a lot like Dan Mullen's first year in that you're going to see some good moments. You're going to see some really bad moments. And I think State fans are going to have to do something that a lot of football fans don't want to do: be patient. Because it's going to, right. Yeah. Hey, but
no need to panic here.
Yeah. It's going to take some time. I mean, it really is. And I think Jeff Lebby, so far is the guy for the job, no doubt. I mean, a couple games in, they've got a game against Toledo. We know they're coming up this weekend, but guys, they can't sleep on that game. I mean,
no.
the Rockets could come in there and wear them out. I mean, we could look up Saturday if we're not careful, and Mississippi State could be in a battle in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And
Toledo's always good. I think they're 2-0 this year. What's the line? 11.5, something like that. But if I were Mississippi State, I would not be looking at that line or even thinking about it, because Toledo is very practiced at punching above their weight.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, one thing for sure is, and we were talking about it, fans, we all want to win, okay? Think back with your own children and your parents when you were a kid playing. I've never left an Auburn game early in my life. I always stay the full 60. And I always, as a kid, and I took my kids to do it, now they do it, go outside the locker room when they come out. And, look, but still, you got to keep the heat on, because, Jake, apathy is the one thing a program can't afford. But I think we got to be careful. Social media, hiding behind an anonymous moniker and trashing. If you got something to say to Peyton Thorne or Caleb Falk, go say it to his face, or otherwise shut up.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Ever. Thank you, Rob.
Get a life.
I'm going to get some theme music when you go into the Rob mode. I'm just going to play low, like patriotic, like feeling. Like, hey,
Sentimental Jake, Alley.
Jake, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry. This is
sure.
I'm dyslexic. By the way, Richard Petty, nice to meet you.
Good to see you, Richard.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You're a numbers guy. Down here in Florida, there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about quarterback controversy, and we were having a conversation about how do you is there a way to sort of quantify like one game from a true freshman, because it was such a great game, even though it was a weaker opponent? Does it make sense to like go to a McNeese State game of like last year with Graham Mertz and then sort of like say, okay, same time of day, same time of year, similar sort of program, and then look at sort of like QBR and all that kind of stuff down. Like, is that something that you would do as far as that? Because I was trying to figure out a way to, how does Billy Napier really sort of, when you look down, you look at tape, you see that, but is there a way that you would analyze that in a way? And I guess the two part of that is, would it make sense to look at, say, 2023's numbers from Graham Mertz and find those junk numbers, right? And then differentiate really what was it? What was he like? Is there a way to do that?
I don't know of a way to do that. It's such a small sample size. I think a couple things with Graham Mertz, and when you look at Lagway, it's a couple things here. One, you got to trust your coaches. They see these guys every day in practice. We don't get a chance to see them. There's a ton of reps there. We know that DJ Lagway obviously is a very talented individual. How good can he be? We really don't know. When I do quarterback numbers, especially from analytics side, when we start talking about team numbers and metrics, recruiting obviously plays a big part of that with coaching and some efficiency numbers and a lot of other stuff. But for quarterbacks, it's what have you done on the field? And I think the sample size is too small. For me, from way out here, 10,000 feet, I think you're looking at a couple things Billy Napier may be thinking about is, one, DJ Lagway is going to give you a different type of quarterback. That's why he's talking about playing both of them. I mean, obviously, he's extremely talented as far as making you play 11 on 11. And then, two, it gives the fan base something to be excited about, at least for the moment. There's going to be some bumps. There's going to be some bruises. But I mean, he may be the next best thing that we've never seen. So it's hard to quantify and take one game off what we've seen and say project it forward and say, hey, this is what he's going to do, because he's going to see a totally different team than what he saw last weekend. This weekend.
Yeah, and I think Dave and I and Brendan all would have to ask this question to you.
Well,
I like
hold
that.
on.
I
got to follow up with that
Yeah.
and just say, is there, do you ever look at one player like say Graham Mertz 2023 because of the the win losses and all that stuff? There were a lot of games where they were out of it pretty early. Not a lot. There were games that they were out of it, sort of Georgia. That starts, like. Is there a way to kind of like look at junk points or not points, but junk stats in the sense of, I know guys pad their stats when there's blowouts, but sometimes that works the other way too, because you're going to go pick up a quick touchdown, you know what I mean? So
Sure.
Do you ever do that kind of stuff with just one player? Because like with the specialty positions like quarterback, obviously that's going to have a lot of statistics.
Yeah, but you can weed out. I mean, you can go back and start backing out, just as you call it, the way you framed it up, junk games, trunk time, as I call it. And you can start, if you want to say, okay, if we're going to compare apples to apples, Jalen Milroe versus Graham Mertz versus top 25 talent, we can start needling it back that way and saying, liked opponents, liked defenses that are top 20 defenses. Yes, you can back it out and look at it that way.
Dave, talking about numbers, what he's saying, I look at a quarterback and a team and I throw out the junk. I've always done this matrix. I'll take your top 4 toughest opponents and I see what your stats were against those 4 teams, and that's how I judge you, Dave. I mean,
Yeah, and I'm just super interested in the Texas A&M Florida game this weekend. 3:30 kick. The weather is supposed to be horrible in South Carolina in the Low Country, so I'm guessing it might not be great in Gainesville. Don't know. Haven't looked at the forecast. But this is a game both teams absolutely have to win, and I think it's a game of the week in the SEC. I don't think it's a do or die. I think that's a little too melodramatic, but it is a must win for both. So I'm just super curious. Because of our producer, I'm gonna pull for the Gators. I think they're laying 4.5 right now, but just really, really intriguing matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, well, who do you guys play? We had this. I've given my opinion so many times. I decided to wear a disguise today. By the way, I'm not Richard Petty. If anyone's wondering, it's Brendan.
43.
Okay, so everyone, I've just been on this damn channel so much lately. I thought I'd change it up a little bit.
He lives on it. He gets his mail
I
here.
never leave here. We're
blessed.
What do you guys think about? Who do you start? I mean, and I want the lens of, Billy Napier. You're Billy Napier, right? And you have to make this decision. Your job's on the line. No question, you're in the hot seat. You can't get blown out at home. You can't go through this again. You can't get blown out again like right away. And you've got a quarterback controversy. So if you play the wrong guy, there's a lot of pressure. What do you know what you're up against? What do you do? We'll start with you, Dave.
I think you go with the incumbent. That's probably going to get me in a lot of trouble with Gator fans, but because once you switch, it's hard to go back. I know, Saban did that little, castle move in chess with Milroe last year against South Florida, but he can do that. He's Nick Saban. He can do whatever he wants. Billy Napier can't. If he switches, he's got to stick with his decision. And if that turns out to be the wrong decision, that's probably his, epitaph, if you will.
Jake?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I think you got to go with the incumbent, and it will be interesting to see. And I agree with Dave. It is the game of the week. Both teams.
That's DJ Lagway for all of us not so smart people with vocabulary. The incumbent is DJ Lagway. Those people. So you're both agreeing that you would start Lagway. Just right. I just want to clarify.
Is that Dave? You and Jake both agree on that?
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Jake?
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to start him. And you may see a situation where the first, I don't know how Billy does this or his staff, but, scripted plays, 10, 11, 12, whatever, to where maybe you see both guys, maybe he moves them in and out. I mean, a lot of coaches, if you talk to 10 coaches, you may have 10 different opinions on how they would do 2 quarterbacks. Some coaches don't like it. Some coaches will not do it. Some coaches, they will do it. So it'll be interesting to see how the flow of the offense works over the first 2 series of this ball game for Florida. and then which quarterback is actually, running the offense.
Jake, I got to ask you this on Mississippi State. Talk about shaping your quarterback. He's a transfer. Everybody's got transfers. What is kind of a theme that you're seeing early on with Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State?
Definitely wants to go fast. Wants to run a lot of plays. Wants to keep the pace high. I think with shaping, it's stretch the field. It's play sideline to sideline. This is some of the same stuff we've seen out of Jeff Lebby as an offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, what he was doing with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss and some other places as well. So I think it's just pace of play and then what they want to do with chunk plays. But for him, what they've got to do also is they've got to be able to establish a better running game. When you're on and we all know this is simple math, simple football. When you're on the field 3 plays and you're off and your defense is on the field and it constantly churns that way, your defense is just going to wear out. So they've got to get some relief out of this running game. I'll be interested to see this weekend what that running game does look like and how it is implemented against Toledo.
All right, another one before you go, and I know you got a busy day. You've got a great show in Jackson every day in the afternoon. I like this. Kerry Jones, Lebanon, Tennessee. In the words of good old Waylon and Hank Williams Jr., that song, by the way, called The Conversation. Are you sure, Hank? Done it this the way. Now, Jeff Lebby's the son-in-law of Art Briles. What he's done, that system has worked quickly everywhere it's been. You feel like State can crack 500 this year?
I would have said possibly last week at this time, losing to Arizona State. That means now you got to go get one. So, let's just say they beat Toledo this weekend, and if we chalk through this schedule just real quick, let me pull back up over here and just give me like 10 seconds to pull this up. But if you look at Mississippi State now, you beat Toledo, and let's just say at the end of the year, you beat UMass. So now you're at 3 wins. You still got to get 3 more wins. And where are those wins coming at? I mean, so even if you beat Toledo, so where are the 3 wins? Is it Florida next week at home? It's not going to be Texas and Georgia on the road. It's probably not going to be Tennessee on the road for sure. It's not going to be Ole Miss on the road. So now you're down to your home games, which are Missouri, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and then Florida. So all that to say is you've got to get 3 or 4 against some pretty darn good SEC teams. I would say the likelihood is very, very slim this year.
Well, bottom line is long way to go. And I think everybody looking at it, it's a 12-chapter book. I always say that. But, Jake, look, come back on with us next week. Can we get a request in advance for some data? I want to see the trends that I'd like to, like what Brendan said, taking out junk stats and other stats. I'd love to look at that and let people know how they can follow you, because you are a moving newspaper, basically, with the stuff you put out on social media. It's all very relevant, and we really appreciate you taking time to join us always.
No, I'll fill you full of all kinds of good stuff next week, Brendan. I'll get you some quarterback stats.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk. We'll talk off there because we can make a deal. I can make some graphics if you want to use them back and forth. Like I can, I'll have that Brendan guy doll them up for you real pretty.
And y'all got each other's contacts. So yeah. Thank you, Jake. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Talk to you soon.
Hey, Richard Petty.
Who ever thought that Richard Petty was such a Renaissance man, that he can, race stock cars and make graphics and
Well,
you got to stay up with the
football
time
the way that he can. I mean, this is a man for all seasons, Mr. Petty.
Yeah, and look,
I handle all my own press. I also sign my own contracts, and I open my own beers. Okay.
Well, somebody on here, Kerry Jones up in Lebanon, Tennessee, said is DW Darrell Waltrip coming on next. I don't know if he is or not, but I know who is on live from Reynolds.
Never have that son of a bitch on the air with me. That Waltrip son of a bitch.
Got a NASCAR bragging. Hey. I know who is on. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, live from Reynolds Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville, Arkansas. You are looking live as the Razorbacks prepare for Game 3 against the UAB Blazers this weekend. Dudley, Hogville.net, thanks for joining us this morning. Let's get your takeaway. I had the Hogs to cover. I felt like that if it went to the fourth quarter, the Fighting Petrinos could pull it off. But what were your takeaways, the good, the bad, and everything in between from that double overtime loss in Stillwater?
Well, first of all, always good to be with you guys. I thought it was Shooter Jennings myself that
there you go.
I like that
this morning, but Well, you've got two camps after this football game. One that said I knew they'd find a way to lose it, and another that said, hey, they're better than they were because of Bobby Petrino and that offense, but they still made the same mistakes. I look at this team as better than last year. How many wins that's going to translate in may still be 4. It's a really tough schedule, but there are some things to be optimistic about. There are some things that you wonder how you can do that. Just fundamental wise, backing into the or getting blocked into the punt return a guy that certainly cost them. But I had them losing by 11 over there. I actually went to a baseball scrimmage early. Arkansas baseball fall scrimmage on Saturday morning, and that was keeping up with it there as well. And they were just dominating the first half. I'm not breaking any skips there. Give Mike Gundy and his staff credit for making some adjustments at halftime, and also they were the benefits of some parting gifts that Arkansas left them there in Stillwater. And that was one of the games that I thought they had to have. Now you got to go find one that you didn't expect to win. And I would say that I'm still of the wait and see mode, but both fan camps are digging into their holes.
Well, as Ron Higgins referred to him as the mullet man. Do you know the mullet man who lives on Drury Lane? That was that was 648 yards of offense from the Fighting Petrinos. Dave Tompkins, this is Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. The man knows the Hogs. Jump in this conversation here.
Yeah, I would put the over-under on wins. If the over-under was 6, I'd be a hard bet for me. I would never take the under. I wouldn't take 5 or lower. But then to take the over, I'd take the over, but I'd do it with some trepidation right now, some wait and see trepidation, because we just don't know yet. And they do have a gauntlet of a schedule, like most teams in the SEC, but they've got, looking at the rest of their schedule, they do have at least 3 winnable games, probably 4 or 5, and then probably 2 more games that they can win. So I think there's upside here, and I hope there's upside. I love the coach. Love, bringing in Petrino. I think the future is bright. I think there's going to be a spillover effect with Calipari and the whole athletic program. And it's just if they can get to 7 wins this year in regular season and then win a bowl game, kind of like Auburn, what we talked about Auburn earlier in the show, to me, that's success.
Yeah, Dudley, and Vince Ferrara will join us here momentarily from the Sports Animal up in Knoxville, 99.1. And I love this when we get all these minds going. Dudley, your quarterback, Talon Green, he is one hell of an athlete. 418 yards passing on the road. It's an effort, but it looks almost effortless. He's such a gifted athlete. What do you think about him?
Well, he's been very impressive. Obviously, he gave up the 1 pick six that was big, but he was getting hit by a guy who was playing what looks like his last play of his season. And Colin it was able to get to the quarterback and cause that. He's been very impressive. Still got some throws he needs to make, but he's also got some that he just puts on a dime. It's interesting to me. If he just sets his feet and throws, ball gets there. He's got some very good wide receivers. Obviously, Jaquindon Jackson has been a force in the run game. The thing that's interesting to me is I'm always into narratives and opinions and all that. Apparently, the first half was Bobby Petrino, and the second half was Sam Pittman. I don't understand that. You got to take credit. You got to take blame for both. But, it's just they missed a couple of field goals. It was right there for them. We'll see how they respond this weekend. Sam Pittman is calling it their first on-campus home game this year after playing at Little Rock first game against, a UAPB team that, interestingly enough, went out and after getting beat 70-0 by Arkansas, went out and beat Arkansas Baptist 73-0. So they've had a 143-point swing in the 2 games. But UAB 2-28 against SEC foes, has lost the last 22 in a row. You better win this one. I think they'll win it. Trent Dilfer was very effusive in his praise for Bobby Petrino, as he should be. And I think that's the biggest thing that gives Arkansas fans hope. They saw what happened in the first half. You don't put the ball on the ground. You run the clock a little bit better. You win that football game, and that would have been a big win. One other thing, on the way over there, the fans were, there's no way they'll win this football game. On the way back, they should have won this football game. You know, I'm so disappointed. Now, okay, gotta pick a lane. Gotta pick a lane.
Yeah. Well, I like it when fans are mad that I don't like it, but you want that ladder. We should have won that because I was around a lot of Razorbacks over the weekend, and I get these text threads, and it's coming in from everywhere like a meteor shower. But that's what you want is you're pissed off that you didn't win that game. You wanted to win it, but you know what I'm saying, Dave?
It seems like Hog Nation has a completely different mindset now. Just to compare right now to a week ago, the mindset seems completely different now. It's like, hey, we should have won that game. We should have won that game going away. And if we had won that game, we'd be looking at the rest of the season thinking, okay, this is an 8, 9, maybe a 10-win campaign. And so it's they're this close. I said it last year about Arkansas, and I was 1 year premature, and I think I'm on it this year. I think they're this close, and so they've got a easy game this weekend, obviously with the UAB, but then the SEC season starts, and they've got their few winnable games, but they do have, I think, looking at their schedule, 2 or 3 games that a week ago they would say they can't win, but now they're saying they possibly can win. And so just have that mindset turn into momentum, and let's get some W's.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is the 6th game in the last 10 that's been a 1-score game. They go the other way. Everybody's fine and dandy up here. They don't. They just got to learn how to close it out. Just got to learn how to win, and that's a process. I give Oklahoma State's radio announcers a lot of credit. I like to listen to, both sides radios and all that to kind of get it. They talked about how Oklahoma State, over the course of their last decade or so, has found ways to win football games. It was their 7th come-from-behind win in a second half in a game over the last 5 years, whereas Arkansas was looking around. We can do this. Oh, there's a fumble. There we go. And you've got to learn the mentality to come out and win. And how I don't care whether anybody likes me or my opinions or whatever. I'm not here to make people happy or make people mad or make people sad. If I'm doing all 3, then I'm probably doing my job. Yeah, this football team is better than it was last year. I just don't know how good it's going to be. And anybody who thinks in this day and age when they can, with 40 new players or 38, I think it is for Arkansas, and you're going up against a team that has 50 new players, that everything, and you're just full of
Well, and you look ahead to the Auburn game. They travel to Jordan-Hare, and that's going to be an interesting game because Arkansas has everything to gain from that game, whereas Auburn has everything to lose from that game. Yeah. And again, it's the mindset, and it's like, Auburn, you're thinking, if we don't win this game, we're in major trouble, and Hugh Freeze is in deep caca. But Arkansas is thinking, hey, this can be the building block to a really turnaround good season if we can go in there and win.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. Like you said, that's going to be a huge game for both teams because one of those is going to come out of it feeling good. The other's going to come out of it trashing their head coach and their football team. And that's 2 passionate fan bases that, as you said, it's not apathetic. They still care. But, man, who knew that Auburn-Arkansas earlier in the year might be the game that shifts the loser to the side?
Yeah, and I think Hugh Freeze is going to have a successful career, but he is trying to close the talent gap. But you're right. Arkansas in 2002 and 2006, that 2006 Arkansas game, Darren McFadden talked about it on the show with us about a month ago. 11 a.m., Auburn number 2. They come down there and win 27-10. 2002 still, I have nightmares about Fred Talley. That guy was amazing. And Matt Jones, Granddaddy Longlegs out of Fort Smith, Arkansas. On the barracks at Virginia Military Institute, right by the 4 cannon, who are named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Virginia Military Institute, where so many of my family members matriculated. I wish I'd have gone there I may have lasted a week or 2, the discipline, but it says, you may be whatever you resolve yourself to be. Stonewall Jackson said that. I think that mentality that both of y'all and Richard Petty's talked about is true. You can't wait for the other shoe to drop. You should always expect to win, but it's hard to believe that But then when you get a quarterback like Taylon Green, guys, that guy, I'll tell you, the scariest quarterback I've ever seen play at Arkansas in my life was a guy whose uncle lived in Parkin, Arkansas, but this guy was from Texarkana. His name was Ryan Mallett. God almighty, that guy had an arm. And this Taylon Green, athletically, I've never seen something like that at Arkansas in my life. Am I right, wrong, or just way too much coffee out of the Bim Bam cup, Dudley?
Well, I think there's probably a little bit of all of that. I do think Matt Jones was similar, but I do believe that, and Matt will tell you, he's talked about this on the radio this week, that Taylon has a much better arm than Matt did coming in. Matt was a playmaker who learned how to throw the ball, and they were so worried about him running the ball and the people that he had in the backfield that they weren't necessarily they were loading up the box. They weren't necessarily double teaming wide receivers, and that helped him a lot. He made some great passes. He was just a big time playmaker. But he's come out and said, that Taylon is a more, even though Taylon's raw, still he's a more finished product when it comes to in the throwing game than Matt was at the time. Those are the two comps. One, they're both 6'6", both can fly, both have those long legs, and they run. They moved faster to the goal line than they appear to be running.
Yes. Yeah. You don't realize it when a guy that's 6'6", and he's from the Metroplex out there in the Dallas area, coming from Boise State. But boy, have you had a chance to talk to Bobby Petrino at any point this season? Has he invited you out to practice yet?
We have what I would say is acknowledged each other. I've been very critical at times, and I stand by that. I take great pride. I understand he does like my line now that he's more of a grandpa than a player. But I have great respect for what he's on the field. There's no reason to get into the motorcycle and ditch and all that. But, I criticize me. I criticize him. I think it's valid, and I give credit where credit's due. And so I don't think we're ever going to be best friends, But I do think that we both respect what each other does for a living. And I think he's really good at what he does. And I think I'm okay at what I do.
Well, that's why you're a true grit journalist. That's your job. And that's why we respect what you do so much. Vince Ferrara, how you doing, man? I know you had a busy morning. You've been up since 4:30. Like I said, you're a duck hunter. You just don't know it. How you doing? Let's talk about the Fighting Iamaliavas.
Woo! Now you're just showing off again there, Rob, with your pronunciation. Man, they call him 8 Ball because he wears the number 8 and he's a baller.
Yeah.
I don't think that's why they call him 8 Ball.
That's not.
Just saying.
8 million.
That's
8 million NIL.
Not the 8 Ball.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
His nose bleeds a lot.
Hey, but look, that kind of makes my point. You don't. To me, I flush that stuff out because now you got him as the player.
Yeah.
Now you can focus on how he's impacting your team. When he wasn't playing and when he was a recruit, then all the talk was NIL. To me, he has delivered on everything that fans expected on what kind of player he is. And they're 3-0 with him as a starter going back to the bowl game last year. And as a team, they've only given up 13 total points in those 3 games, and none on defense. Just the pick 6 they had last week. So, and they checked the box last week too. You knew he's a redshirt freshman. You knew he was going to make mistakes. Was hit as he threw and had a pick 6. But earlier in the game, threw an interception. He threw a little high and tried to force the ball over the middle of the field. I mean, the number of mistakes this kid has, you could count on one hand that he has made. That was one where, he missed on that throw, but it was as if it never happened. The coaches trusted him to throw over the middle and deep again, and he responded, and he played great after that. So that you wanted to check that box, and he handled it beautifully. Kid's playing great, and he's impacting the guys around him. It's been an amazing start for Tennessee so far.
Yeah, 2 big statements.
I think they're going to go into Norman. I think they're going to go into Norman as at least a touchdown favorite. I really believe that, and that would be shocking, but it would not surprise me if they're at least a 7-point favorite going into Norman next week.
Yeah,
if
two big
Oklahoma
statements in the
doesn't
SEC
play
last weekend were made by teams that start with T and where aren't. Texas and Tennessee established. Texas has established itself. I do believe we don't have to use the word back or whatever. They're just a great football team. Established itself as a contender for the national title, and Tennessee said, "Hey, don't forget about us over here." We got the new quarterback, as I call him, because I can pronounce that. They've got a mentality. I give Tony and the baseball team credit. Things are going good over there now. Fans feel good. Athletes feel good about themselves. There's something to be said for that. And when you go out and you've got a talented football team, I mean, they put it on NC State. I thought they'd win, but not like that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to Tennessee and Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Oklahoma's going to have to play better, or else. That prediction about them, Tennessee being a touchdown favorite, could very well happen. I guess the last 8 possessions, they didn't score a touchdown last week. Not looking great. Third down, all that kind of fun stuff. So Oklahoma's going to have to play better. They'll get some points for home field as well, but Tennessee has even exceeded expectations, because now they're into the top 10. Now you're seeing them in a bunch of the college football playoff predictions. I know, long way to go.
Yeah.
But Tennessee fans, Rob, I've told fans, I said it this morning several times, and I'll say it every opportunity. If you're a Tennessee fan and you're trying to downplay any playoff talk, man, enjoy it, embrace it. When have you been in this position of even sniffing this kind of discussion, unless you're just being unrealistic going into a season when they weren't equipped for it? Yeah. Now you can. It's realistic to think that they're in that range in conversation, even with plenty of games to go. So enjoy it, take it in, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I want to say, Dave, jump in here, but I've got a new nickname for Nico Iamaleava, Octaval.
I'll never remember that.
We're back. It's like Peerless Price all over again. I mean, the Tennessee is all of a sudden dominant, and I mean, just look at their rivalry game against my Alabama team. Obviously, they won in Knoxville 2 years ago. Alabama had to have a monster second half last year at Bryant-Denny to win that game and to prevail. I'm afraid we're going to get our arses handed to us in Knoxville here in mid-October. And if that happens, and I think they're going to win at Norman, I mean, Tennessee could go into Athens, late in the season undefeated. And I think that puts them as a shoe-in into the playoff, win or lose. And I think they can, host a playoff game and advance.
Wow.
And that's just kind of out of nowhere. And credit to the coaching staff. And I'm so happy for all the Tennessee fans.
Yeah, including my wife.
A little bit, right? I mean, it's still a little early. I mean, lots going to happen. By the way, I'm just putting my 2 cents in there for my friend Brendan. Vince, Brendan really wants to try that Tennessee Navy thing. You go down before the game and, hang out. So if you know anybody down there, get them out. Tell them Richard sent you.
Hey, Vince, with a better chance than Martin, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that guy's a jerk anyway.
Well, Vince, I tell you what, Mark Ham, Audrey's cousin, he got these 2 new barrel grills that they sell at Academy Sports now. Y'all ought to see these things. They're 55-gallon drums that you can cook ribs, brisket, chicken in. We've been using them over here.
We never bought those. We just went and made them. We just cut a barrel in half.
Well, guys, and Mark's got the tailgate. He said they're going to be feeding between 250 and 300 people. Vince Ferrara, I'm going to hook you up with Mark. You need to go by there Saturday. If you have any free time on game day, which I think we all know is, and Dudley and all of us know this, it's very limited. But anyway, Dudley, you've heard Vince make these points, and I saw Blind Squirrel and Kerry Jones making some comments. You were trending toward Tennessee, Georgia being the game of the year. Again, it's early, but I love this enthusiasm. And you know what? All aside, the trend, do we have a dominant team in the SEC right now, and the rest of the country right now? 6 of the top 7 are SEC teams, but it's early, and we'll eat each other up. I mean, that's going to happen, but I think the prediction that Texas was more prepared to come into the SEC and have early success than anybody else, Oklahoma. Oklahoma had 252 yards against Houston the other day. Didn't score on their last 6 possessions. They're going to be good, but a lot of football to be played, Dudley.
Well, if we didn't take opinions and we didn't take impressions from the first 2 ball games, there wouldn't be shows like this.
There'd be
no need for them. We could sit around and read, facts. We want to offer them up opinions, and some of them are good, some of them bad. But after the first 2 weeks, you certainly can make more points, salient points, than you can when we were sitting around in the preseason going, well, I think this and I think that, because we now have 2 games of tape or film or video or whatever they call it these days. My head coach used to put it on a projector, so he, so that. But I do think while we don't know exactly the power standing of the teams, we can certainly start to differentiate between who's really good and who may not be. And then there's that fine line where there's a bunch of teams, Arkansas being one of them, that has an opportunity to be better. But until they do it, you're going to hold off on, jumping on or off the bandwagon.
Hey, we got to say goodbye to Dave Tompkins. Bye, Dave. We don't. I know we wanted the Irish goodbye, but I didn't.
The Connor Stallions documentary, man, that is one hardwired dude. It's on now on Netflix, so that's some good programming. But boy, that's a Michigan man through and through there. Y'all have a great day.
Dave, thank you so much. We look forward to having you on again in the next few days, week, or whatever. Thank you. Hey, one thing that's true, like Dudley, you just made a great point. Until you have some games, it's like, it's hard to get a conviction on murder without a body. Or in football, it's hard to have a real strong opinion without a body of work, a few games under your belt. So you think about this, guys, and there have been so many good things said. Look at all the excitement, the anticipation of these games. A week from now, we could be having a completely different conversation. But I'll tell you, buy and hold. Hugh Freeze is recruiting at Auburn. That's a buy and hold, paying a 5% dividend stock. It's just right now, it's ugly getting through where you want to get to, but you don't get rid of a guy like that recruiting at that level. Dudley and Vince and Brendan, all 3 of y'all know the Florida, the Tennessee, the Arkansas program. Richard Petty, I'm sorry. Richard Petty. But what I love is look at the excitement of the fans. All you got to do is play well and have a chance to win. As long as you're making that progress going forward, hope is the greatest thing you can give a fan base.
You all about it today. Now stop with it, bro. I'm going to get the music for the patriotic flag today. I mean, give me a break. This is not reality, dude. They're getting paid. That's it. They get paid now. So now we get to give them shit because they're getting paid. And that's the deal, because it's no longer, that guy's not developed and all that kind of stuff. Like I said last night on the Buddy Martin show, I said, look, what do you say to Graham Mertz? Well, here's $800,000 and not such a bad deal. Like, I don't care. Look, you haven't won in 300 plus some days, and you finally win against Sisters of the Blind and Poor. Like, dude, you've got to give yourself a little bit of opportunity to win the game. And I think these are the kinds of things that, like we're talking about that with Auburn, we're talking about it with Florida. We're talking about these certain things, that right now we're in week 3 and we're allowed to be that critical of these coaches. We're allowed to be that critical of these players because they're making $1 million and I'm not. So guess what?
Well, you got to be critical.
Graham and DJ thing. If you lose the ball game, you better lose with the future instead of lose with the present/past.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
your job's on the line.
Yeah. I mean, when you're paying kids, they're going to get criticism like they never have to this panel. I think we all know that. I'm just saying that you got to look at a coaching staff and say, okay, what are they doing? They've got problems. You better figure it out. That's the 3 words, figure it out. When you're getting paid $7 to $10 million a year, you're going to get criticized. But you got to look at the long-term picture. If you're not showing progress in year 2, Vince and Dudley, I think y'all know it ain't going to happen probably in year 3. It's got to happen early because recruits want to get on the hype train. You don't want it to come to a screeching halt, Vince.
You got to show something, some sign the first year. And then, yes, you have to follow it up with some sort of step after that. And look, kind of what you're alluding to the excitement, and if you're winning and you're going in the right direction, the fans are coming. I thought NIL and the transfer portal was going to ruin college football. I don't know. The ratings are still setting records.
Yeah.
There's still people going to these games. There's still a waiting list. Like, if you deliver the product, yes, people are going to go to those games and enjoy the sport, even if it's not perfect like we wanted it to.
Because most of them don't even know about the NIL. You poll, everyone walking out of Neyland Stadium and tell me what the NIL is. Like, is that a new player? Or, like, a lot of them just don't understand it. They heard of it. Right. I mean, that's my experience when I talk to Joe fan out there. Like, college athletes get paid now. Shut up. They get paid? Yeah, they get paid. No, I hadn't heard that. Yeah, you can Google it. It's called NIL. I do have to explain. Joe Pop doesn't know that.
I do have to explain what NIL is. To people, what does NIL stand for?
Really?
I said, a way to give you money legally.
Yeah.
Name, image, likeness, but it's a way to give you money legally instead of under the table, as has happened over many years.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, Vince,
Legal
about
cheating.
NIL in the portal, and we've had a lot of great people say it. I just say this: a lot of people know, they've always known that it was cash, clothes, and cars. Now it's campus culture, coaching, the 3 C's. But the bottom line is, we just love going back to these campuses, Vince. I mean, Dudley, Brendan, y'all know that. Think how much business and relationships people are going. There are almost as many people at some games outside the stadium during the game as there are inside the stadium. Vince, what is tailgating like? Let's get into this. I'm going to ask you about tailgating.
They get on a boat and they go down the damn river and they get off and they party the whole way. Could be the coolest thing ever. I've never done it, by the way. Brendan hasn't ever done it. And I would really like to do it. So if you got a freaking boat in Knoxville, hey, I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah. Vince Ferrara does not have a boat on the Volnavy, I'll tell you that. But, I'm surprised Richard Petty does it with all of the money he's made and the status. Look, I was in Charlotte. I went to the Tennessee-North Carolina State game, and there were Tennessee fans that are critical of Tennessee playing these neutral site games. They voice their opinion all the time on our shows and everywhere else. Why are we doing these kind of games? Who cares? We want them on campus, home and home. That's what we want. And then there's still many thousands and tens of thousands of fans that still go to those games, and they still dominate, and they still travel as good, if not better, than any other fan base. And had more fans there than North Carolina State, who was closer there from Raleigh. So, and then the home games, incredible. You talk about what the tailgating is like in Charlotte. They were all in the parking lot. They're in the parking garages. They set up their own tailgates around their cars and in the corners of garages, and everybody, cooking out and playing games and stuff like that. And just so fired up. And you see that everywhere around campus, even with construction going on, they're still there. So it's if the product is good, regardless of all those things, NIL, transfer portal, whatever else, people are going to go to those games. You just got to deliver, and the hook for delivering is going to be shorter if you don't, because now everybody has a voice, and they're going to be mad at you even quicker now than they were before if you're not delivering.
Dudley?
There's nothing better than Petra and I, my wife, will go to a tailgate before the game started. But there's nothing funner than watching other people drink and have fun and offer you beer and shots, and you have to turn them down because you're not Hunter S. Thompson. You don't write better when you're blasted.
Gonzo journalism.
You have tried it, and you've looked at the results, and you said, no, should not do that anymore. But it's part of the festival, every SEC venue. It's part. The key now is getting them to come inside, as you said. Whether it be Little Rock or wherever, get them to come inside and watch the game, because you can make some money on concessions there. People are just bringing their own concessions and sitting out in the parking lot a lot of times if your team is not performing up to its level.
Yeah,
Brendan, talk about tailgating down in Gainesville. I mean, I know the Knoxville.
It's really hot.
Yeah.
All the time. Always hot. Just wear your, like, I'm miserably hot and drinking in the middle of the sun gear. Even when it's nighttime, you'll probably be good.
Well, what are they cooking down there? I mean, ribs. Do they do seafood, gumbo? I mean, we know what we need to. Like Dr. Arnoff says, let's add Vince, Dudley, all of us. Every time we're on here, all these other fan bases, like Dr. Arnoff said, we know our school, but we want to learn about your schools too.
Well, many years ago, I started Brendan started a community on Facebook called the Gator Nation Kingdom. And Buddy Martin was the king of the kingdom, and Brendan was the crown prince of that kingdom. And we grabbed a couple of crown prince.
Clown prince or crown prince?
No, crown. Well, either one, really. Okay. Yeah, but we went with crown prince. Just because it was like popular in the news that time. And then, I got some Burger King crowns, and then I gave it to my dad, and I wrote Dilly Dilly across the front of it. And then so that was the birth of the Gator Nation Kingdom. They do a tailgate still to this day, and they still get together, which is weird that I did anything that was nice. And now they get together, Lauren Meadows, and they have a spread of ribs, and it's all Southern, barbecue.
Yeah.
I think, Adam's Ribs does it. It's all typical Southern barbecue. Oh, well, and then the boiled peanuts on the way. So you got to drive. If you're driving up, you got to stop and get these peanuts that make you want to vomit later, and then you go up to the game, and then you got gas.
Hey, I'm a big fan of hot dogs, but if you're just having hot dogs at your tailgate, there's no use in inviting me by it.
I think hot dogs is not acceptable.
You can go all out.
Hey, Vince, what are your favorite Tennessee traditions prior to football games? I think that is Blind Squirrel Sports. Now, hunker down, Blind School Sports. With 86 seconds left, we've got Vince Ferrara. Come on, you silver britches. Oh, my God. Lauren, what do you got? Well, Larry, I got one hell of a show going. Let's get back to Vince. Lauren Smith, love that guy.
Yeah, to answer Blind Squirrel Sports' question, proud of the Southland Band. It's crazy. I take questions from the crowd on the Vol Network during our Big Orange Countdown pregame show, and we're set up there with a really nice stage, sponsored stage, and we're at the amphitheater at Gate 21. And Pride of the Southland Band always comes through during the pregame show, so it's loud there. So there's a stretch of time where we can't hear very well, so we're not taking questions during that point. But it's still awesome to see so many people lined up on both sides of them in different areas.
Yeah.
They come over the bridge, and they come through
it's awesome there.
It is.
Let me throw this one, too, before we go to Dudley. Behind me, you see that picture right there. That's a picture of Neyland Stadium before they finished it, okay? Mm-hmm. That was autographed by Johnny Majors to my wife, Audrey, who is a Vol for life, I can assure you, to her late father, Billy Ham. And that her connection to Tennessee football from when she was a little girl, she went to every game, watched them, or listened to them on the radio all her life. And so her dad passed away 22 years ago. I was up there at that game in Knoxville 2 years ago before they played Alabama. Mark Ham has those season tickets. We're in there when that Pride of the Southland Band came out and formed a giant T, and she was in tears. I mean, that's how powerful this stuff is. I mean, she absolutely, it gives you chills. I've been to a lot of games in Knoxville. By the way, Dudley, we'll be up in Fayetteville as a guest of Jim McClelland and his wife October 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. For a bunch of stuff we're going to be doing that weekend. Look forward to getting to meet you in person. But I love this stuff. Kind of tell us game day, some traditions that we don't know about. Thank you, Dr. David Arnoff. By the way, if you are ever ill in the Florida Panhandle, Dr. David Arnoff, Panama
don't
City,
call him. That's going to piss him off. He doesn't want that business. He's busy. What are you doing?
Busy man.
I called him the other day. He answered in surgery. The
guy's incredible.
I'm kidding. He wouldn't do that. I'm not trying to get him in trouble. He's like that. He's the guy, kind of a guy.
He watches the show while he's doing in between rounds. But Dudley, kind of give us a little color, because it's very powerful stuff.
Well, first of all, I heard you say your wife's a Vol for life. I'd like to say mine is a MILF for life.
Bam.
Two shows now. Be here all week. Try the bill. Arkansas has a place called the Gardens. It has really, I think, picked up the tailgating excitement here over the last decade or so. Lots of bands, a lot of different, pep rally type things. It is a strong tailgating thing here in Arkansas, whether it be in Fayetteville or Little Rock. And as I said, getting them, you got to win to get them to come in, sometimes. And that has been, I've seen a lot of people just stand out there when the team was losing. But I think it's a really good atmosphere they have. They tried to cultivate it a little bit more. But it is one of those things like any place else. Tailgating is better when your program is winning. If not, you're watching a lot of games on TV under the tents that you put up out there at tailgating.
Yeah. Does your wife have any friends? Because if she does, I'm single, so maybe I'll come and tailgate in Arkansas.
Richard Petty.
Richard, I'm not on your Wikipedia. I saw you were married, but
it's in racing. It's a little loose. We're good. It's a race girl. We're good.
Okay. Well, hey, Minnie.
It's open.
As a reporter, I'm not TMZ because I'm not out here reporting that stuff. So, thank
God. You reported up.
Over 40 years, I would have reported a lie.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Look, we're gonna wrap it up, man. But another awesome show, and we are beyond blessed, man, to have Dave Tompkins join us, Jake Wimberly, Brian Matthews, AuburnSports.com, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Vince Farrar, the Sports Animal in Knoxville, executive producer Brendan Martin. Hey, man, we are the greatest, most blessed people in the world. Act like it, people. Act like you've been there. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll get this team together next week. Richard, any advice for us?
Hey, you know what? Don't take any wooden nickels, and Rubbin's racing. So, and hey, always pay your lawn guy or they show up in the middle of your live show. There you go. He needs his money. He's pissed. He knows how to get his money.
All right. We'll see y'all next week. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us. our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.